guys, it's us, it's Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Emily.
And today we're doing a book review on The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I hope I pronounced her name right. We got this book as our December book of the month pick. Actually, it was my pick. And if you're interested in book of the month, see the link below. There's a 30% off, I believe, for your first 3 months plan, which is a pretty good deal. I think it's $10 a book a month, which is a good deal. So for this book, book of the month actually gave me an email for 4 discussion questions, which we'll be using for this video. Question number 1 is, do you think the book is about fate or are actions having consequences? Were the events of the day all meant to happen, or did they happen because of small decisions?
Should I go first?
Yeah, you can go first.
Okay, so like all book club questions, this is always a murky one. I tend to think I'm more on the side of where I think this book's about the actions people take, the small ones and the enormous, massive consequences that come with it. Particularly because, oh, I hope this isn't a spoiler, but like something happens in this story where, I mean, it's kind of like she just happens to meet someone that day who does something towards her that then makes it almost impossible for her to get what she wants, the main character. So I'd definitely say that it is a story about reflection on what how you can be more careful, I guess, when it comes to your day-to-day decisions, because you never really know if something that you do will significantly change someone else's life forever.
Yeah. So I think for me, I think it's kind of a mix of both, because I definitely think that a lot of things happen because of small decisions. Like, I know exactly what she's talking about because I was actually really pissed about this. And I wrote about it in my review, which is already up in case you guys want to check that out. But because of that small decision that the person made, it had a huge impact on, you know, this other person's life. And I was just like, are you serious right now? The small decisions definitely impact your day-to-day life and possibly someone else's in a really big way. But at the same time, I do believe in like fate and destiny, because, you know, as people always say, if you meet someone 3 times like by coincidence, maybe it's meant to be.
Although in terms of some cases, particularly in the story itself, I'd say that it could be interpreted that someone's small action, like someone who has like a really like is this kind of like an authority figure over you, if they make a decision that you can't really like go against, right? I definitely I think that would change the dynamic, because like for the authority figure, it would be considered like an action and they would have to deal with the consequences, right? But for our character particularly, and also in some sense us in our day-to-day lives, we would interpret it as fate, because we simply just don't have any control to decide what happens next. Right. So.
But at the end of the day, it depends on who you are, you know, like where your position is in the world. If you're, for example, the president, your decisions will impact a lot of people. And for us, it's kind of like, this is a higher...
Are you doing a social dig?
This is a higher...
I didn't get the book.
This is a higher, you know, decision. I had no control over it, you know. So, number 2, do you think Daniel and Natasha are in love by the end of the day? Ooh, this is a difficult question, I think. Alright, you want to start, or should I start this time?
I think you have something more to say about this right now.
No, not really, but I'm just like, I think it's a hard question because...
Okay, why is it a hard question? That's the topic.
Because I feel like in love, I don't know, like, I just can't, I'm a cynical person, I think, I've heard, and I don't think that meeting someone for one day, like 24 hours, like not even 24 hours, I think it was just like sometime in the morning to when she got to like the end, I don't think that you can fall in love with someone in that short of a time. You can definitely have like a, you know, very good connection with them, a very meaningful connection with them, but I don't know if you can be in love with someone in that short of a time. Like, do you really know the person? No, like you don't. I mean, there were circumstances when, you know, they found out more about each other than other people might have known, but less than 24 hours, like, come on. I don't think they were in love with each other. I think they were more in love with the idea of A, being in love, and 2, like trying to see for themselves like what destiny is, I guess.
Well, my answer is just as convoluted, but I would definitely say that it will depend to me. I think that there are such situations, I think it's really based on circumstances, that people can fall in love pretty quickly, especially if it's like, if you know that you're in danger or you have very limited time in terms of being together, which is sort of this scenario that happens in this story. Also, their conversations are nowhere regular. They're not regular questions that they ask each other. They talk about very deep, insightful questions that reveal character in some form or way. And I think then I would have to bring this discussion down to, how do you even personally know what like being in love really is? Are you in love? Like, is love an idea? Is love like a physical reaction? Like, that's all like, you know, like in terms of the chemistry, biology, as well as like psychology of it all. And we're not going to go that deep. But in terms of my understanding of it, I would definitely say it depends.
So for question number 3, do you sympathize with Natasha's father? What about Daniel's brother? Oh my god. No to the first question, yes to the second question.
Okay, for me, I actually would have to go for
the opposite.
Yeah, the opposite, really.
Really? I can't. Like, I mean, there's yes and no for both, but I feel like I side more to no for Natasha's father, mainly because, like, one, he's a grown-up, okay? Like, I understand, like, circumstances had changed his future and his dreams and whatnot.
I definitely would say that from what I've read, he sacrificed quite a lot in the beginning in terms of like waiting for his opportunity, making sure that like things were more settled between his wife and his daughter and son. And I know that this is a little, I guess, murky, but of course, like near the end when he started feeling like he would never really, you know, end up where he wanted to be, he wasn't the best husband. I'm nowhere by means justifying his behavior there, but I definitely say that like Natasha's mother put a lot of pressure and a lot of blame on Natasha's father, so it was like reactive. So I mean that's what kind of like why I sympathize with him, because he had his dream, and yeah, unfortunately fate didn't really work out in his favor. He wasn't the appropriate age, like I guess kind of like how we are, even though maybe we will feel that way eventually one day too, to sort of just venture out on his own. He had a family, but he was really trying to do both. I could definitely see that, and I think that's a pretty universal struggle for most people who don't make it or haven't made it yet. And so for me, like I can really sympathize with the idea of him being crushed by someone else's ideals and wants as well.
The other part of the question was, do you sympathize with Daniel's brother? My answer is yes.
Okay, you go first.
Mainly because he's, as an oldest, I mean you're the eldest in your family too.
Maybe that's why I don't like him.
Maybe that's why I sympathize with him, because I'm like, I understand the pressure your parents have on you. When you're the eldest, your parents, you know, look to you first, and they expect your siblings to follow your steps. And because of that, I feel like there's a lot more responsibilities, a lot more expectations from the eldest of the family. So I can sympathize with him in that way, because when I was growing up, my parents were also like, you know, do this, do that, you know, like you have to set a good example for your sisters, blah blah blah. So that's why I can sympathize with him.
For me, I did not like Daniel, and my reasons actually don't have much to do with yours. I completely agree from your point of view. Yeah. But what I didn't like was the fact that none of that meant that he had to be a complete like
dick.
Yeah, like I don't know if should we curse, like a complete asshat towards his younger brother. Like I am the oldest sibling in my family, and I have never ever taken my temper out on my sister, because I know that's not where it's coming from. You know, like that sort of pressure and stress. So for me, like I've never understood why he rejected Daniel, because he was Korean. He reminded the fact that like, because his brother always had like an inferiority superiority complex.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's also another component of the story, being the fact that both of the characters are American minority characters. So being the fact that like his family was Korean and he never liked being Korean, he tried very hard to distance himself from that.
Right.
I didn't particularly like him for that either, because that's not something that I'm foreign to, like that feeling of like wanting to like, you know, like sometimes like having to figure out who you are despite of like two very varying cultures.
I can sympathize. When I was growing up, like as the first generation of like parents who came here from Asia, I can totally understand why he had that like, you know, racial like superiority versus, you know, whatever it was. So I can understand that, and like, you know, I know that definitely back in the day when I was still figuring out myself, I was kind of like, oh, like sometimes it would just been like better if I were like white, like it would just make things easier, people would like me better, etc., etc. Because like living in a country where it's like that, like,
well,
I mean, this is also like 20 something years ago, so it's probably different than it is now. Like I feel like it's a little bit better, but growing up, and I was living in an area that was I feel like
predominantly white. Yeah, me too.
So it was like, you know, people make fun of you, and then you just get like called names. And thankfully, that didn't really happen to me as much, because all my friends,
She's
like
boss pants.
at elementary school, were, what?
You were bossy pants.
No. All my friends in elementary school were more like, there were a good portion like different like races.
I guess to play along with that anecdote, I grew up when I was younger in predominantly white.
Yeah, you grew up in really
Midwest.
Yeah, you were at least I was on the north, like the east side. Yeah.
So I remember being one of the only Asians in my grade.
Yeah.
In school, and it was like, it was also one of those weird like leap grades. I forget what they were called. Like they actually keep you in the same class twice. And I definitely would say it was a really tough growth spurt there, because teachers also didn't even know what to do with you in a way, because it's like, it is tough being especially since I actually just came back from China. I was born here, I'm American, but my parents
FYI.
well, because it does make a bit of a difference. So my parents left me in China with my grandparents, and then they took me back when I was 5 after they finished their studies at the university. And when they were first trying to search for jobs, I was put into, you know, the usual public school in Illinois, and I definitely would say that my experience there made me feel like it was definitely peculiar, because I had actual experience being around people who look like me. So obviously maybe that's also another reason why I don't sympathize as much with Daniel's older brother, because I am not like him. Like I know that I knew that there were other people, like a whole country, a whole continent of people who look like me, and if people were mean to me in Illinois, I was just like, oh, maybe that's just how America is, but that's not how everyone else is. So I might not have never really like suffered too deeply in that sense of belonging. But I definitely would say, as I start growing, like as I started like, you know, getting into like 3rd grade, 4th grade, that sort of more or less started becoming more of an issue.
So for question number 4, the book breaks from Natasha and Daniel's stories to provide histories of other issues. What other feelings, objects, or individuals in the book do you wish were explained with an interlude? So I'm guessing this is from, you know how like, the one thing I like about this book was how rather than just Natasha and Daniel's like POV, there were also other people's POV, like someone that Natasha met on the street, or the immigration, like, you know, security guard, you know, her POV as well, the lawyer's POV who dealt with immigration, etc., etc. So I like that a lot, because it allowed us to kind of see what other people were feeling, what were the reactions, what were the reason why they did such a thing. So I like that a lot about this book. But whether or not it needed an interlude, I feel like they don't need it. Like, we don't need more backstory from random individuals. I think what she had was good.
I actually found some of the point of views a little distracting because
yeah, it was a little distracting, but once I realized what they were for and like what the explanations were, I was like, okay, like I can see the point of this.
Right, but that's like kind of like an afterthought. When I initially read it, at certain points where the main character kind of encounters like an accident or whatever, that particular scenario where she meets up with that stranger, he only makes like 2 entries inside this whole entire book. And I felt that was a little bit of a loose end, because if you're going to focus a chapter on him, regardless of how short, because this book is stylized very uniquely, I guess as a reader, I just expect a little bit more, like, of why. But again, like, because people's backstories, if we really do go dive really deep into it, as you can tell from our questions, how deeply we go into our own, there's always like stories within stories. So I think overall, based on the sort of medium she chose, she did a good job.
That's all the discussion questions, and we will think about our last thoughts of these, our last emojis. Let's see.
I think mine would be these 2. I still like the book, not in love with it, but it also made me think a lot. Not that I don't think usually, but
I feel like mine might be the same, just because I couldn't find it.
So because especially after talking to you about things, it really does make me like reflective. It makes me really relate to a lot of the characters.
Emoji.
Right, and especially given the story itself, it's one of those books where no character really is the hero. And if you like that sort of story, and you also like the realism in it, then and you also aren't deterred by the fact that it's YA, you should definitely go and read it.
So again, if you want more information on this book, I will link the Goodreads link below, and if you are interested in Book of the Month, where you can also get it, I'll also link that below as well. So anyways, we will end our video here. Thank you for watching, and please remember to subscribe and thumbs up if you like the video. Oh, and also comment below if you have any thoughts on the book, or if you read it, or you want more information. We'll try to respond to those as well. Alright, thank you.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.